All right. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome to another Financial Fridays with Sanies and Equitable. Today's topic is Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide. And Sanies is very excited to offer these sessions in cooperation with our corporate partner, Equitable Advisors. Before we begin, we will hear a few words from Equitable. Let's get this up here.
Who Equitable Advisors is. We're a large financial firm and been a strategic partner of Sanies for the last 10 years. In that, we've had a commitment to the K-12 marketplace, making sure that educators are educated about their finances. We've been able to give those members additional support that's needed to make some of the biggest decisions in their life, like preparing for their retirement and their kids' college education. When an Equitable Advisor meets with a Sanies member, what our objective is to give them the confidence that they need going into retirement, making one of the biggest financial decisions they'll ever make in their life, to best assist them prepare with whatever their financial goals are. Equitable provides Sanies members includes financial resources and articles, complimentary financial profile meetings and an asset map, professional development educational webinars to units, and then in 2025 we're going to be doing a Ready to Retire series for people that are at least 1 to 3 years out from retirement and want to know how to finalize next steps. One of the benefits of being a Sanies member is on the first Friday of each month, we've always provided a Financial Friday series. It's a 30-minute series that goes from 12 to 12:30 that's presented by local regional representatives at Equitable that manage each region within Sanies on a variety of topics, including planning for the future, student loan forgiveness, and healthcare and retirement. What I would want Sanies members to know about the Equitable relationship is that you're going to have questions that come up, and there's always a tremendous amount of resources. There's an email address, saniesmembers@equitable.com, that can be utilized, and there's always somebody on the other end of that email address to address any questions, comments, or concerns. Best time to plan for retirement is today. Looking at the future immediately or as soon as you're able to, realistically, you're going to be best prepared for that future. Sometimes, if people haven't looked for the financial future yet, minimally 7 to 10 years out from retirement, that threshold absolutely must start because you still have time to make effective change, tweaks, and adjustments to your financial situation to best be prepared. The most important message for Sanies members to know is that Equitable Advisors is there to help them as life comes up. It is normal and it's going to happen where there's questions, concerns, things you're unsure about, and you've got a tremendous amount of resources to help and support you through that.
All right. Great. Thank you to Equitable there. And joining us from Equitable today is Nick Agulia. Nick, thanks for being here. And just a quick reminder, everyone, the session is being recorded, but we will save questions until the end of the presentation. Feel free to add questions to the chat or use the Q&A feature in the webinar. And the Q&A time is best used for general questions, but please note that the Equitable team is available at any time to answer your personal questions. You will find contact information for your regional reps at sanies.org. And I'll turn it over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, PH. Appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for hopping on the call today. So today we're going to go through the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide, which is pretty much a conversation regarding the importance and some of these specific actionable items that everybody should be thinking about and considering when it comes to estate planning strategies. My contact information is here. I will also share it again at the end. So as PH mentioned, if anybody has generic questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will try to address those at the end. And if anybody has more specific questions or was looking for more of a one-on-one conversation regarding estate planning strategies, feel free to contact me at some point in time after the call as well. So today, the agenda, what we're going to go through, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of estate planning. We're going to talk about the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide, and then we're going to talk about what we do after we have that completed. Now, to put this a little bit in context, the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide is an actual booklet. And I'll also mention that if anybody is interested in receiving a copy of this booklet, we can send you a PDF copy after as well, or we can actually send you a hard copy in the mail of the booklet. I'll talk through kind of the benefits and what the booklet entails, but it's just a guide to help individually or to help maybe lead a conversation with a family member on estate planning strategies. So again, feel free to reach out to me after, or feel free to comment in the chat if you'd like to receive a copy of the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide after today's conversation. So moving forward, the importance of estate planning. Why should we take time to plan out our estate? Right? Depending on somebody's age, depending on where they are in life, we may be focused on other things. Maybe it's raising a family. Maybe it's just trying to save some money for retirement. But the importance of estate planning is that it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect everybody on this call at some point in time in their life. And for many of you, it may be impacting parents or grandparents in the very near future, or possibly even currently. The problem is that unfortunately throughout life, maybe personally or maybe somebody we know, but unfortunately people are sometimes affected, or they're faced with unexpected illnesses, with tragic accidents, tragic events. Having a plan in place is going to ensure the protection of our loved ones. It's going to help ensure the transfer of assets to our loved ones. And no matter the extent of what somebody has saved, ultimately you want to choose what happens to those assets. You want to choose who benefits from your assets. You do not want to leave that up to the government or up to a judge or up to the state. So two important goals of estate planning. It's one, to facilitate difficult conversations with loved ones, and two, it's to complete all the relevant legal documents. Throughout the process, when going through the Share Your Love Family Discussion Guide, again, it helps to facilitate those discussions with loved ones. Let's face it, these are not always easy conversations to have with parents, with grandparents. They're not easy conversations to have with kids, not easy conversations to have with loved ones or significant others as a whole. So having a step-by-step guide to be able to go through will help to really note each important asset. It will help to note each important document, and it's going to help to talk with family members about either your wishes or their wishes regarding those assets and regarding somebody's overall financial situation. So again, continuing on with the importance, it really helps to avoid conflicts. I've been a financial advisor with Equitable for 14 years, and I can tell you I've witnessed, as well as I've also heard stories of situations where the death of a loved one ripped a family apart. And it's unfortunate, and it's a shame. And in most cases, it's very easily preventable by having these conversations in advance and having the, again, appropriate estate planning documents completed. It's also going to help to facilitate timely distribution of assets. If a will or the proper documentation is not set up, it's not completed, it's not filed properly, an individual's estate, no matter how large or how small, it can be tied up for years upon years. And in cases like this, all it does is it just costs thousands upon thousands of dollars. It costs time. It creates aggravation. It creates infighting. So again, I know I'm somewhat belaboring the point here, but having the appropriate estate documents set up, it just ensures the maximum assets are being distributed according to wishes. It helps to facilitate that and helps to avoid any type of infighting or any type of issues that could potentially arise within a family. So the Share Your Family Discussion Guide, what it does is, again, it's a step-by-step consideration for what your wishes are. And it goes very, very granular. And I always tell people we can fill it out as in-depth, as granular as we want, or we can keep it more high level. But it's a very straightforward guide, helping to clarify wishes, helping to communicate your wishes effectively to a loved one. And by completing the guide, it's going to help family members to understand, again, the extent of your assets, to know the wishes, and really to be prepared in case of incapacity or, in case of death. So having that plan, as I mentioned, is incredibly important, but it's even more important to have the discussion. So a couple of examples. There's a real life example with Florence Joyner, excuse me, the Olympic gold medalist. She prepared a will when she passed away at 38, but her family couldn't locate the document. And this actually happens more often than it should, where someone will say, "I know my mom had a will," or "I know so and so had met with an attorney," and they don't know who the attorney was. They can't find documentation. They can't find the will. So going through the estate planning process, as important as it is, it's also really important to make sure that we're having this discussion with our loved ones, and that they know that in the event, if something should happen, they know what those next steps are, they know where to find documents, and they know who to reach out to. So simply put, the purpose again is to put someone's mind at ease. It's to help prepare loved ones to carry out wishes and wants. It's taking an inventory of everything that we have going on in our life, which can be daunting, but it will really help to break it down into more small, manageable steps and help prepare loved ones for later in life. So some of the key considerations. So we'll talk through the considerations. First is going to be key contacts and advisors, financial information, other important documents, and then we'll talk more the actual wills, the formal legal documents that are required. So things to think about, and these are things that aren't always necessarily top of mind when creating an estate plan. And again, it's why the Share Your Love guide is so important. Is it takes things into consideration like who are your key people who help in your life, such as maybe financial or asset advisors. Do we have their contact information, right? Can somebody, who has to step in and help out with your estate, will they be able to find it or know who to reach out to? There was again, another real life example of Gerald Cotton. Gerald Cotton was the CEO of one of the largest cryptocurrency firms in Canada. And when he passed away, he was the only one who knew his unique passcode for all of his cryptocurrency. And there was tens of millions of dollars that were locked up. And it became this whole legal battle for years in trying to figure out who has access or how do they access all of these assets. So making sure that this information is written down and that it's easily or readily available to somebody in the event they ever needed to assist or step in. Taking a step further, again, financial information and assets. This one probably a little bit more common sense. It's what we think about a little bit more regularly is what do we currently have going on? All right, so making sure we have an inventory of this, making sure that we understand how the laws work in New York State regarding all of this. One of the things that's very important to understand, and probably one of the biggest takeaways I'll say from this conversation, is knowing that beneficiaries supersede wills. So a beneficiary that you might have listed on your pension, on your 403B, on your life insurance, that is going to supersede what's in a will. So again, frequently we'll come across situations where somebody, maybe when they started working as an educator, as an administrator, they were single, and maybe they set up a parent to be their beneficiary on some of their accounts. And then they end up maybe getting married and having a family, and their parent passed away, unfortunately. And now when, fast forward to today, they have a deceased parent listed as a beneficiary. And even though they may go and update their will, the beneficiary information is what's going to supersede what's in the will. So it's so important to make sure we understand the laws. It's so important to make sure that we're sitting down, working with somebody who can help guide us in the right direction, and making sure that we have everything set up that we need to, and that we're taking account of all of our financial investment accounts, our debts, our real properties, and in any credit card or other information that might be relevant as well. Insurance and other benefits, kind of just piggybacking off of what we talked about as well. Policies like life insurance policies, disability policies, Do we have maybe long-term care policy? What would happen if someone started to have some memory care issues, or unexpectedly maybe somebody had a stroke and we had a loss of memory, and we needed to go into some sort of temporary, or even unfortunately some sort of more permanent care facility? Do we have insurances in place that it will help to mitigate some of those costs, that will help to cover that? Again, if this information is not documented, if it's never been discussed, it can create undue burdens. It can create a lapse in quality of care, and it can create a huge expense to whomever would have to step in and maybe assist with that care. And some of the documents and information, we'll go through this more in depth, but specific estate planning documents are also very important to understand. Things such as a will, a living will, a power of attorney. So we'll go through this shortly, much more in depth, and talk through kind of what the benefits are, why somebody should have or consider having at least every one of those legal estate planning documents. But other documents are things like, maybe if there's any family businesses, work with people a lot of times who maybe they have family farms or family vacation homes, and multiple people are involved in the ownership of this, or titles to property or to homes, marriage, licenses. If there's been somebody in the family, maybe one of the spouses had already passed away, are there death certificates? So there's a lot of documents that, if all of this stuff is organized, if it's all together, in the event, again, something happens unexpectedly, the goal of this is to make the life easier, to make things so much more efficient for whomever would have to step in. And I've seen both sides of this. I've seen people come to me and they're so distraught, they're so emotional that they lost a family member. And on top of the emotions that naturally come with grieving, they're now overwhelmed, anxious, and stressed unnecessarily, because they're having to pick up all the pieces from maybe the individual who didn't know or didn't take the time to do all of this planning. And it can be, if anybody's going through this, and I will suspect that at least one or more individuals on the call have gone through this with a family member, it can be very stressful and very daunting. So let's talk a little bit more about the specific estate planning documents. Again, the legalities, why they're so important, and really what they're used for. So a will serves two purposes. Right? To summarize, a will is going to name, first purpose, a will is going to name who would raise minor children in the event something happened to one or both spouses. So for some people, it's very important, right? They would absolutely want to make sure that they control, they dictate whom would be responsible, whom they trust to raise their kids with their values, their morals, etc. So being able to name those individuals in the will, one part of it. The second part is a will also names whom would receive any tangible assets or any assets that do not have a beneficiary attached to them. As I previously alluded to, beneficiaries do supersede a will, but not everything in life has a beneficiary attached to it. For instance, somebody's car, somebody's house, sometimes checking and savings accounts, family heirlooms, maybe tangible assets like gold or silver. All right, maybe somebody's Beanie Baby collection from back from years ago, right? Whatever that might be, not everything is going to have a beneficiary. So the will is going to dictate whom then assets, items would transfer to that do not have that beneficiary. A living will. So a living will is a little bit different, very different than an actual will. A living will is a written statement where you're expressing your desires regarding medical treatment. So the next conversation we're going to talk about, or the next topic, the next legal document, I should say, is a medical power of attorney. We'll go through that more in a second, but a medical power of attorney, that's what grants somebody the power to make medical decisions. What it does not do is it does not state your intentions, your desires, or your wishes in certain circumstances. So a living will, it's expressly and specifically states how you would want certain scenarios to play out in the event that you were incapacitated or unable to make medical decisions on your own. It takes a lot of the burden off the medical power of attorney, because instead of having them try to make very difficult, sometimes life-ending decisions, it allows you to be able to expressly state your wishes and take that burden, take that decision, take that pressure off of whomever would be the healthcare proxy or medical power of attorney. So living will, I'll say living will is something that most people forget to talk to their attorneys about. It's something that doesn't always get done right away. But if we're talking about estate planning, if we're looking at setting up everything properly, we might as well have this conversation with our attorney, and it just kind of lay out our desires, our wishes in the event that a unexpected or tragic circumstance were to transpire. Medical power of attorney, I mentioned already, medical power of attorney, also known as a healthcare proxy. A lot of times these can be set up at your doctor's office. I always still encourage people to talk to an attorney and have a medical power of attorney set up directly through them. As an example, I have mine set up through my attorney. My wife and I both have our healthcare proxy cards that we keep. I keep mine in my wallet. She keeps hers in her purse. So in the event we ever needed to, we can pull it out, and it just shows that we are each other's healthcare proxy. We are the ones that can make those medical decisions if the other person is then unable to. Medical power of attorney is, again, very important to have. If you do not have this in place, again, the courts get involved. You can start to have infighting with family members, especially if you happen to be in a family or a situation where you have siblings that live out of the area or kids that live all out of the area. It's not easy when you have one person, maybe local, who's caring for, let's just say, caring for mom or dad, and you have other siblings that are in a different state and trying to communicate all of the details back and forth on care and what's going on. The person who's local here generally or tends to deal with the lion's share, the brunt of the major decisions. Those decisions tend to be questioned by some of the family members. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with the medical power of attorney. So again, this is why it ties in so closely with that living will, is because it does help to mitigate some of those uncomfortable conversations or decisions that might have to be made. Durable general power of attorney, also a lot of times called financial power of attorney. This is what allows somebody to make financial decisions on your behalf in the event that we are unable to make those financial decisions on our own. Very important to have this set up. One might argue this is probably the most important document. As somebody ages, sometimes some of their mental factors when it comes to managing finances gets severely diminished. The ability to maybe understand some more complex financial ramifications or decisions becomes compromised. And I've seen this throughout the years. Unfortunately, I've heard many horror stories of individuals who have been, especially as of late, taken advantage of through internet scams or phone scams. So having somebody that you trust listed as a financial power of attorney that can call and get information on your behalf, that can help manage finances on your behalf, again, whether this is for you for the future, or whether it's you just approaching this or looking at this conversation now and applying it to one of your parents or maybe your grandparents or maybe a sibling. Either way, there's a lot of value that can come from, again, having these conversations or understanding how this all ties together for individuals. And lastly, we'll talk about just the ethical will and family history. And this isn't really, necessarily a legal document per se. It just, a lot of people, especially, when you have families that are very close, or families that have, maybe a strong history. So you have families that pass on traditions from generation to generation. And for many individuals, it's important to keep those stories, to keep those traditions going. So, defining your legacy, having an opportunity to tell your story, to pass down those values. This is just a nice little, value add piece. Again, it's a part of the Share Your Love discussion guide. It's also something that, somebody could probably just type up in Microsoft Word, but just, thinking about it. This isn't something that everybody always thinks about, but, writing down, having some sort of again, story that can be expressed, that can be passed on to loved ones, is very nice and thoughtful in keeping the family legacy and keeping family traditions maybe going. So in conclusion, after completion, so the first step is, again, what pretty much everybody is doing right now is hopefully just gathering some information. It's learning more about estate planning, learning more about some of the documents and the importance. The next step is taking action. And whether they be sitting down with your financial advisor, contacting somebody at Equitable, and learning more about what the next steps would be, taking inventory of what we have going on, and really getting a better understanding of how estate planning ties into your situation. Maybe even going through that Share Your Love family discussion guide, completing that. Those are going to be good next steps. From there, the legal side of things generally is done through an attorney. And you have access to these legal documents. You have access to meet with an attorney through Saney's to help prepare these documents. You may also have somebody in your life that that can help prepare these documents. But the legal side, the will, the living will, healthcare proxy, the power of attorney, those legal documents need to be completed by an attorney. And then again, after the completion of everything that I just talked about, arguably maybe the most important part is going to be sharing the contents, discussing the contents with somebody, with your loved ones, at least the loved ones that would be impacted and affected, so that they either, one, they have copies of everything, or two, they at least know where to find physical copies, again, in the event a tragic situation come up and they needed to have access to those documents. With that being said, I hope this was helpful. I have my contact information shared again on the screen. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and I will look at the chat here in a second once I take this down and see if anybody else has any generic questions they'd like me to address.
It seems people just have questions about getting the planning guide. Who can they email or?
Perfect. So they can email me directly. I can put my email back on the screen again real quick. So if you want to just take a picture of that, or again, just feel free to write down the email. I'll leave it up there for another minute. Just shoot me a quick email. Just say that you're on the call and that you just would like a copy of the family, Share Your Family Love discussion guide. We'll get that sent out to you.
Perfect.
Clearly, if you want it emailed, I'll have your email. If you want it mailed to you, you can also provide to me the physical address you would like it mailed to.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions.
Good for now, then. So again, PH,
All right.
you again, appreciate it.
Of course. Appreciate you coming on here. All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a good weekend. Take care.